I was assigned to a search and rescue team combing the Nantahala backcountry for a family of 3, the Aldridges, who had vanished from a well-marked loop trail 4 days earlier. We'd been out for 2 solid days, grid-walking every drainage, calling their names until our throats scraped raw. We found the usual scatter: a granola bar wrapper, a worn shoelace, a single child's mitten damp with dew. No signs of struggle. No scent for the dogs to follow, as if the family had simply stepped off the earth. On the 3rd morning, a fog settled so thick I could barely see my boots. The team decided to wait it out, but I had a gnawing pull, a certainty that something was being hidden in the murk. I told them I'd check a steep drainage that the topo map marked as a gentle slope, a cartographic lie that had bothered me since we arrived. I went alone. The laurel was so dense I had to crawl through tunnels of slick, waxy leaves, the branches twisting together overhead like clasped fingers. The air grew colder with every yard, not the fresh cold of mountain morning, but a dead, refrigerated stillness that made my sweat feel like ice water. The fog thickened until it became almost fibrous, clinging to my sleeves in wet threads. I broke into a clearing that shouldn't have existed. The trees stopped in a perfect circle, as if the forest had drawn back in revulsion. In the center stood the staircase. It was a grand spiral staircase made of stone that gleamed like wet graphite, winding up to a height of about 30 feet and then ending in nothing. No platform, no ruin, just an elegant curve of steps that twisted into empty air. The stone was dark, veined with faint silver lines that shifted when I looked at them directly. Moss clung to the rises in patterns that almost formed letters, almost spelled words I could nearly read before my eyes slid off them. The whole structure was impossibly clean, as if it had been built that morning, yet the carvings on the banister were worn smooth by the touch of countless hands over centuries. I radioed base, but the handset emitted only a thick, buzzing static that pulsed in a slow, rhythmic beat, lub-dub like a heart. I should have waited for the team. I should have turned back. But the staircase exerted a pull, a deep, resonant invitation that bypassed my brain and spoke directly to my legs. I approached. The air around it was silent in a way the forest shouldn't be. No birds, no insects, just a pressure that made my ears pop and my eyes water. I touched the banister. It was warm, like skin, and I felt a faint pulse beneath my palm that matched the static on the radio. I took the first step. The stone absorbed the sound of my boot completely. The second step was the same, and by the third I realized I couldn't hear anything at all. Not my breathing, not my heartbeat, just a high, faint ringing like the echo of a struck bell. The light changed as I climbed, growing older and more yellow as if I were walking backward into a sepia photograph. The air thickened, pressing against me like deep water, and I had to force each step. When I reached the top, I looked down at the clearing below, and that's when I saw myself still standing at the bottom, frozen with one foot on the first step, looking up with blank, milky eyes. That other version of me didn't move, but its mouth was open in a scream that made no sound. Then I saw the family. They were inside the staircase's spiral, not on the steps but woven into the stone itself, their bodies flattened and stretched like pressed flowers. Their skin had the same dark gleam as the rock, and their faces were contorted in expressions of eternal, silent terror. The youngest girl, Emma, aged 7, I'd seen her photo on the missing poster, was the only one who could move. She turned her head toward me, the motion accompanied by a sound like grinding stone. Her eyes were polished obsidian. She opened a mouth filled with dust and whispered, in a voice that seemed to come from beneath the earth, "Don't let it count the steps." The staircase shuddered. The steps beneath my feet began to multiply downward, more and more spirals unspooling into a depth that hadn't been there before. I understood with a clarity that bypassed logic that if I descended I would never stop. I would walk those steps forever and something would count each one, and when it reached a certain number I would become part of the stone like the others. I jumped. Not down the stairs, but outward into the empty air beside the spiral. For a sickening moment I fell, and then I was on the ground, the wind knocked out of me, the fog swirling in my eyes. I don't remember the descent. I woke at dusk, lying in the laurel, my uniform soaked with a black, viscous fluid that smelled like ozone and old copper. The staircase was gone. The clearing was just a clearing. My radio worked, crackling with my team's worried voices. They found me an hour later, babbling about stone and skin. They assumed dehydration and exhaustion. I didn't correct them. But every night since, I count my steps before bed. Brushing my teeth, 1, 2, 3. Walking to the closet, 4, 5, 6. If I reach a multiple of 7, I have to start over because if I don't, I hear the grinding of stone growing somewhere in the house, spiraling upward into a dark I cannot see. Last month, I found a small chip of polished graphite on my pillow. It was warm, and when I pressed it to my ear, I could hear a voice, very far away, still counting.